Headphones on, let's do this.
Hey, do you know of a podcast I could listen to that has nerd and comic books and stuff? I really can't find one.
I say, you ever heard of the Nerd Dome podcast?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nerd Dome Podcast, episode 230. I am your podcaster without fear, Luke, and today I'm joined with, we'll start with Ryab.
We're getting so old.
Yes.
230.
Yeah, it's a lot of episodes. And imagine if we didn't stop for like a year and a half.
Right?
Yeah. Say hi.
Hi. Uncanny Ryab Barbie here.
Uncanny Ryab Barbie.
Yeah.
What is your accessory?
Slippers.
See, there's a speed dating question you could ask somebody. If you were an action figure or a doll, what would your accessory be? That tells you a lot about a person. Ryan likes to be comfortable.
I don't think... Have they made, like, comic book collector Barbie or something like that? Have they made a nerd Barbie? Is that a thing? I need to look this up.
Scientist Barbies, I know that much.
Ryan's like, continue the intros. I'm up. Look.
My daughter has a Galadriel Barbie. Is that a nerd Barbie?
I like that. Can I get a lock of her hair?
3 golden hairs. You asked for 1, but she gave you 3.
And we're joined with our friends again. Chris?
Howdy. Yeah, Web of Chris Hoffman here from Validity Studios.
And
Hi, I'm Andrew from also Validity Studios. I make comics, toys, and games with Chris.
Did you have a adjective?
The ambivalent.
The ambivalent.
The incredulous. Yeah.
That's awesome. So we're just talking a little bit before, but Ryan, you went and saw the Barbie movie.
Did you know they have Barbie comic books? I did not know this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Famously, and for a very long time.
Chris and I had a pitch for a Barbie comic, too, that I don't think they would have taken. Like our Power Pack Flowers in the Attic pitch. I don't think that was going to take.
Nobody's going to like that one. Yeah. No, those Barbie comics started in like 1962, the Dell comics and stuff, and they're worth quite a bit nowadays.
So how was it? Give us a spoiler free, not
Sure.
spoiler free.
Yeah.
That's the word.
There's not much to. I mean, there's not much to spoil other than the story was not what I was expecting, and it was quite delightful. It was super funny.
Okay.
This like it was so satirical and just so meta about making like fun of Barbie and like, but also like really giving like little like history things about what like Barbie over the period of time, and that was really cool. Like the history of Barbie kind of was in there too, and they do a nice like they do something really cool with the creator of Barbie. They do something the lady's daughter. So Barbara, the actual person that Barbie is named after, has a little cameo, and that's really cool. But it was very, very funny. It was very well done. The jokes are really good. It's also got a lot of heartfelt moments, a lot of really cool emotional things. There's lots of mother-daughter emotional impact stuff, which is cool. And it has a really strong, like, equality, feminist, down with the patriarchy message that is laid on super thick and is enjoyable as well.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's on my list to see. Like I depending on work travel, I'll probably try and see it at the end of this week. But it's one of those ones that I kind of was bummed out that I didn't go see it the opening weekend because I hear only great things about it.
I personally was, I was gung ho to go see it, but I wasn't like, I need to see it opening weekend. My boyfriend was very much, I need to see it opening weekend, and so we kind of last minute went, and it was super fun. Oh, the crowd. So again, opening weekend, and I haven't really since COVID, I haven't been going to movies and stuff that often because like my home theater is so nice now, and I don't have to deal with other people.
You upgraded.
But the crowd, like there was lots of older ladies, lots of and bringing their daughters and then their granddaughters and stuff there, all pink, everyone wearing pink, and it was so cool.
I went to my lunch at Costa Vida today with my dad, and 2 tables full. It was one family that all went to go see the movie today. 2 tables of 10, everyone in pink.
Yeah.
Like the grandfather, the dads, everybody was in a pink shirt or a Barbie shirt or something like that. It was very cute.
That's funny. I saw a picture of a family that went out, and it was his wife and his sons and his daughters were all in pink, and then he was in a brown trench coat with a fedora, and he was like, they didn't want to see my movie.
The Oppenheimer.
So he was dressed.
I thought he was going as Action Man.
No, it was definitely the Oppenheimer thing. Is they didn't want to see the movie I wanted to see. But a cool thing that I remember, I was listening to a book a while ago, and it was about the Nintendo Sega thing in the 90s. And they actually were telling it kind of from Sega's perspective, but the guy, Tom Kalinske, the guy who took over in like 1990 for Sega and kind of he's the one who brought the in your face ads and all that kind of stuff. He actually worked from like 1972 to 1990. He was at Mattel, and he was the executive that was in charge of kind of revitalizing the Barbie line and bringing it back in. And I just remember like, oh, that was really cool. And then I think I had read that at the time they announced that they were going to do a Barbie movie. And like, it probably didn't age well, because if you go back and listen to the podcast where that happened, we were like, how are they going to make a Barbie movie? And then they did it. And I'm pretty sure we said, all right, we'll see what they can do. And I can't remember. There was another one too. That was another like Milton Bradley board game that they're turning into a movie, and we're like, sure.
That Battleship.
that was a thing.
I mean, you're an old Navy man. What'd you think of Battleship?
Oh, so bad. So bad. It was that commercial where it's Facebook and it's the grandmas, and she's like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this. That was me the entirety of that movie. I was like, no, you can't. It's been 70 years. There's not like oil in that battleship. You have to redo the whole ship. But then, I was like, but I'm okay with the aliens being there, so maybe I should just get over them not having current oil in the ship.
These types of movies, so like the Barbie movie sounds a lot like the Lego movie, the first one, where it felt like people who care about the toys and played with them when they were kids and I understand this is just like the cynical side of this. It's an advertisement, right? It's a 2-hour advertisement for a toy, but I love those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the difference what you're seeing in my personal opinion with the problems with the Michael Bay Turtles movies. Like, a lot of people like the Transformers movies. I also think those ones are a problem, but there's a whole generation who's grown up with those as their Transformers and absolutely love it. And that's great. But you can tell the difference when someone cares about what they're working on or if it's just a job. You know what I mean? And you can tell that in a lot of these property movies in Marvel, in DC. And you can tell it even when you're talking about comic book adaptations and stuff. There is a difference when you have you have a chef in the kitchen that cares about what kind of flour they're using. You know what I mean?
Like the Deadpool movies.
Yes, you can tell he cares.
Yeah.
Spider-Verse.
Yep. Spider-Verse. You can tell they care. Yeah,
So good.
you can tell nobody cared about the Solo movie.
Right.
They were like, we just need to get this out on time.
Didn't they
and
shoot most of the movie and then reshoot it?
Yeah,
A
they
lot
had
of
to
it, and
replace
they-
the director.
2 chances at it and
Yep.
didn't do. Man, that's an interesting one to go. And this could be a whole different show. But
Mhm.
I read something where it was like, I guess Ivan Kershner actually did have something to do with writing that one.
Yeah.
And then he came in, and apparently like 4 weeks into shooting, he's like, they haven't shot a single thing I wrote. So it's like there was certainly problems on that shoot, and I think it was an indecision of which way they were going to go.
Yeah,
You know what I
well,
mean?
Yeah, I think they had originally they had the director of the Lego movie was
Yeah.
the original director for it, and then he left, and then it was a scramble, and then they're like, let's call Ron. He owes us one from American Graffiti or something. Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, Ron, you want to do this?
Yeah.
But so I kind of felt bad for him because they kind of were just like, here's a quarter of a movie and a quarter of a completely different movie.
Yeah.
You got to use it. Let's see what you can do. And he's like, sure. I
want to point to these ones like Lego Movie and like Barbie Movie. Like you can put out. We were talking about there was another podcast where they were talking about Star Wars movies, and they were saying like, I just turn off your brain. You know what I mean? And like they're just dumb fun. You know what I mean? It's like that's fine, but they could also hear me out. What if they were good?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Fun and they're good.
Wait, Chris, I think you've lost me. Try that
Yes.
again. Yeah.
We can't have those two things together. You know what I mean? That's
Like crossing
impossible.
of the streams.
Yes.
That's definitely one that Barbie movie is going to be one that I see. I watched. They just released on, I believe it was last Thursday, the 20th. They released the 3-part, 3-hour DC Comics documentary. It's called Superpowered. I didn't know it was coming out, and it just popped up because I went to go watch Adventures of Superman, which has been fucking delightful.
Yeah. It might be one of my favorite Superman shows. And I
Really? The new cartoon?
Yes,
so good.
It's quite
so
good.
It does take me a second because Jack Quaid is Clark and Superman, and all I see is Boimler from Lower Decks. Like, especially when I like look away, like when I'm doing something, or I'll look at my phone and I hear him talk, and I was like, "What am I?" Oh, he's Superman, but he does a good job. So I ran across this, and again, I had no idea. Rosario Dawson does the narration on it, she's great. So more of her all the time. But as I watched it, I was surprised about the amount of creators that they actually had. I thought it was going to be, Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, and it was just going to be the people that were in the movies and stuff like
Celebrities,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, the celebrities. But no, they were like, Jim Lee's in there, but you expect Jim Lee and in his position currently to be in there. But again, like Grant Morrison and
John Ridley, Gene Yang. Yeah.
And they have some old they throw in some old Neil Adams and
some archived interviews with Bob Kane and
it's I was getting upset when they got to the Batman Bob Kane part. I'm just sitting there shaking my head. I was like, if they don't say Bill Finger, I am going to flip. And then they did cover him, and I was like, all right.
I did laugh out loud when they said that the creators of Superman were experiencing the American dream.
Right.
Of making $1 billion for a big corporation and seeing nothing of it.
Yeah, and nothing about their health struggles later on in life that were not covered under anything.
Yeah.
Which I think it was a Kevin Smith podcast with Neil Adams. That was one of the better ones where he talks about, because if anyone had talked to Neil Adams, guy likes to talk. That's his thing, and talking about him fighting for like the comics creators to get some kind of health benefits and stuff like that. Like he went off for like an hour on that, and I was like, this is really interesting. This is awesome.
He was one of the he was able to shame Warner Brothers into giving the Superman creators a pension, a paltry pension for the rest of their lives. The artist, he lost his vision. He could legally blind by the end.
Right. Yeah, it like, so they didn't, obviously they just kind of skirted around that. But they did one thing. It was in the second episode. They actually talked about Marvel a lot. As like, I was like,
The distinguished competition.
yeah, kind of. And I mean, I watched the Stan Lee documentary, and they kind of talk a little bit about like what DC was doing, and then they go off on their, Stan Lee thing. But yeah, there's a whole good 20 minutes about what Marvel was doing, and it made me think of a segment in the Stan Lee documentary where they had both of them on a talk show, and they were talking about they had like a comics fan there, and then the editor in chief of both big companies talking about their stories and what makes their stories. And the kid was just telling the DC exec, he's like, you don't need to write these for 8-year-olds. Like, we grow up and we still want to read comics. And he's just like, whatever, it's a fad, it'll pass. And they're like, but it's not. And Stan Lee looked awesome in that interview because the kid was he's a college age kid. He was obviously into the Marvel stuff. But
I remember reading a story about when baby Jim Shooter got hired onto DC when he was 16 years old to write and lay out Legion of Superheroes. He got all sorts of grief from the old men that still worked at DC, and most of them had been working there since the 40s. Mm-hmm. And Shooter was implementing Marvel style storytelling, like, there's conflict between the heroes. They're going to fight each other before they move on to the actual villain. That sort of thing. That was really considered a Marvel style storytelling in the Silver Age. And so he was kind of the first person over there to implement that kind of storytelling, and it wasn't well received either.
Yeah. I was my lights keep flickering. Hopefully the power stays on. It was a solar flare.
Yeah, no one here is near each other, so that's
no. That was funny that you two both looked up for your lights at the same time.
Yep, someone definitely got superpowers just then. Because that's how that works.
We need to start getting more comic book documentaries from independent places. This is a Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers, yeah.
This is like the headline from the Variety review of this says that it's a DC Comics love letter to itself. Yeah, like, look at how great we are,
That was about it.
And so we like one of the most interesting. Andrew got me the book, the Marvel story. What's it?
All the Marvels?
It here. Marvel Comics, the
Untold History.
Yeah. And
that
that just needs to be the basis of a screenplay, right? Like, you could make a really cool biopic about and make it Jack Kirby versus Stan Lee. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they team up at the beginning, and then they have their falling apart, and then you could have like the feel good ending at the end where it's like, like kind of made up. You know what I mean? Make a Hollywood ending out of it, but like show the underside of it. But man, I just don't feel like you could make unauthorized biopics. I watched the one about the monkeys. It's hilariously bad, but someone needs to do those, because Stan Lee and he's starting to get like this deity status where it's like he did some pretty bad stuff, and it's not a thing to sit there and be like, just hammering away at it like, rah, 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 you know what I mean? He did good things, and he came up with a lot of cool stuff that we love. And there's a lot of, but he's a mixed bag. He's not at the level where people are putting him up with like Mr. Rogers and with like Steve the Crocodile Hunter and like people who were like actual saints, you know what I mean? Where it was like, and maybe, I don't know, maybe Steve Irwin he didn't seem like it, but Stan doesn't belong in their category, right? He belongs in the category with George Lucas, where it was like, yeah, he was a very smart guy. He had a lot of cool stories and stuff that he told. He wasn't that nice of a guy either a lot of times.
He's a good storyteller.
Yeah. Great imagination, cool stuff.
When you're talking,
Chris, to your point, Fred Van Lente, who did the comic book history of comics, also wrote a stage play called
nice.
the King Kirby play. And I have a copy of it right over here, which should not surprise you at all. I'll be right back.
No, we started talking about Stan Lee, and I half expected Chelsea to kick the door down.
This is
This
there's
is
the
her
Stan Lee
thing.
the Stan Lee stands who are going to break down your door and be like, "Are you talking about the man? Don't talk about that, Excelsior!" And then they beat you up and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
pretty great.
And that was, I don't know if you guys watched any of that Stan Lee documentary, but they play an excerpt of a radio interview where Jack Kirby's on there and Stan calls, and at first he's like, "Oh, we worked together, it was great," he's like, "But
is that the Larry King interview?"
I can't remember. It was just like it was a radio interview, and he said. At first it was like, "Oh yeah, they're all chummy," and then he goes, "Yeah, but Jack, you got to admit that I wrote all those stories." And then Jack was like, "Oh," and then Jack's trying to diffuse the situation on live radio, like, "Yeah, I drew them, and then I wrote some stuff too." Like, "Yeah, but did you ever finish reading anything that we actually published? Because I didn't put any of your lines in there." And the radio host's like, "Okay." He's like trying to wrap up the interview, but like Jack Kirby in that clip comes off as like the most patient, like saint of a man. Just like, "Okay, Stan, yep."
And if our loyal listeners want to learn more about this subject, I recommend Stuff Said by Tomorrow's Publishing, which is a month-by-month chronology about the disintegration of the relationship between Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
And then you had Steve Ditko off to the side, like, "No, I don't want any. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. Just leave me alone. Let me draw Spider-Man."
If you keep wanting to go down that rabbit hole, there's a pretty cool documentary on YouTube about Vince Coletta, who's the guy who ruined all of Jack Kirby's art.
That's an exaggeration.
Yes,
he certainly erased a lot of background.
Yes, yeah. He was this inker, and sometimes he'd be like, "I'm not inking all this shit," and just erase. So sometimes there's some art that we didn't get because of this. And like I said, they were people who worked at a company and who did things. You know what I mean? And like
deadline for everything.
Yeah, it's 100%. A comic book they were selling for a quarter. Why did they care?
Yeah. Right. Literally for children that they didn't realize that college kids liked the comics at first.
All right, so no,
you're way off of the
topic. No, it's what we do here.
Yay.
So
rabbit holes are our specialty.
Yeah, it's a cluster of rabbit holes. Before we get into the like San Diego Comic-Con news stuff and other news stuff, Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks, they had the crossover episode that we got a peek of months ago. I think it was right before Strange New Worlds came out, or it might have been in their last trailer. And it came out, and it was everything that I wanted it to be. Ryan, you watched it.
I did. It was perfect.
That makes me happy. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, it hit it was, like as you said, it was everything I wanted it to be. My boyfriend is watching Strange New Worlds with me. He's not a huge Star Trek fan. He has watched some of like Next Gen and Deep Space Nine and Voyager, but not like way into it like me. And he hasn't watched any Discovery. He wanted to dabble in the original series and be like, "I don't like this." I was like, "That's fine." But he's been really digging Strange New Worlds, and he's never seen Lower Decks at all. So we watched this episode, and he's laughing through it and everything. And at one point, he turns to me and he's like, "So Boimler is you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'd like to think I'm a mixture between Boimler and Rutherford, the engineer guy." And he's like, No, yeah,
you're
Boimler. If this happened to you, you would be acting exactly like this. Like if you were in this situation. And then he's like, "So Boimler's like a Star Trek nerd, but he's in Star Trek. I was like, I suppose from his point of view, he's a history buff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's the fan surrogate in the show. For sure.
I'm telling you, the second there was the episode of them doing the humming noises of the warp engines, I was like, oh, that's just us.
The discussion they had about Khan versus Roga Danar,
Right.
I was like, oh man, I've had that conversation.
Yeah, they definitely hit the nail on the head with that series. I was enjoying it, but I let out a joyous squee when I got to see the live action Boimler walk from Jack Quaid, and I was like, again, Jack Quaid, you are a fucking gem, and must be protected. And then my wife was like, she brought this up because he was playing, like he's kind of nerding out with all the historical figures. But she was like, you think any of the younger actors are kind of nerding out because of who his parents are?
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about it.
Your mom is Meg Ryan and your dad is
Dennis Quaid.
I was like, hey, do you think your mom could sign a picture? Your dad can do, like, I could see some young actor doing that and then him going, oh, okay, I'm gonna use that. And then like when he has an aversion to Una, which they kind of explain, I guess not a aversion. I don't know how to say it without ruining anything, so I'll just leave it. But yeah, it was great. It was exactly what I wanted. There's a line in there where they say, is it just me or are all of their examples oddly specific when they're talking about things? And I was like, that's the show. That's Lower Decks. Everything is just oddly specific. And it was a goddamn joy to watch that thing. But the thing my wife is now very, very, very excited for is the other thing that they announced, the musical episode.
Yeah, I'm here for that for sure.
I am not a fan of musicals. Like that's like where I'm kind of like, I will enjoy it if I'm sitting with people that enjoy it. I'll be like, oh, that was a good time with the people that I watched it with. But I don't think I would ever take myself, sit down and either go to a musical or watch a musical on TV. Usually that's where I check out. So hopefully, since it's Star Trek, it might hold my attention, but I'm going to watch it because I watched it all. But
well, I have 2 ears and a heart, so I'm sure I'll enjoy it.
Ryan, you're excited for it?
Yes, for sure. I don't know what my expectations are with the Star Trek musical, but I am excited to see what it is.
I love the art poster that they made for it too. That looks like it's like outside
a 50s
of
movie.
Yeah. It's a thing that's gonna happen, and I'm going to approach it with a big smile on my face, and hopefully it'll stay there. But then they also dropped the trailer for the episode that's happening right before it. And it's like a very dark, like Mbenga dealing with like war PTSD with the Klingons. And I was like, whoa, that's going to be a fucking swing between those two episodes going from that to the happy musical. But I mean, maybe we'll need it to kind of just like wash the gross off, because it looks like it's going to be one of those really heavy Star Trek episodes. So,
well, Chris and I are big fans of the inappropriate tone shift. So, yeah. Yeah. And if you like inappropriate tone shifts, check out our comic Ruthless.
It's funny, as I was moving some of my comic stuff around, I found my Trump comic.
Nice.
And I was like, hey, I remember, because I also got the little mini poster from you guys, and I hung it up, and it made my wife so uncomfortable because it was Trump. And she's like, I can't. I was like, yeah, but it's great. And she's like, no, it is great. I made her read it, but she was just like, I can't walk by and look at his face.
We don't sell it anymore for the same reason. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
it was a protest comic that we got out before the inauguration.
Yep.
And there exists a not monumental size, but certainly much larger than expected size, full oil painting of that sitting somewhere in Salt Lake City.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, next time we meet up, I'm just gonna have you guys sign it. So what if I sent that to CGC to get like slabbed and graded?
Yeah. We're in the database.
Yeah, we're in the database.
That's awesome.
Gulls and Ruthless's graded.
That's awesome. I mean, they're in Florida, right?
And Texas.
Yes.
Okay, so they would see the Trump on the cover and be like, "Hell yeah, brother,
right.
Slab it." Oh man,
I'll send him one when he's in jail.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be great. Send it to him. Like, hey, can you sign this for me? That'd be great. All right. Now that we spent a half hour not talking about the news, I've got some news.
News?
So, San Diego Comic-Con usually has just a flood of stuff. But this year there wasn't that much, which I appreciate as someone that was compiling some of the stories to put into a news segment. But I know also it's a lot of, stuff with the strike and certain companies not being there and stuff like that kind of hampered it. So I appreciate it. Also, did they do one, like an in-person one last year? I can't remember if they had still had it closed down or not.
That is a good question. I think that they did in 2022. I'm pretty sure that they did.
Yeah, well, I felt like this year felt more like normal just from, like, I didn't go, but, like, I had a bunch of friends that went, and it just seemed like...
Yeah, there was one. There was one in 2022.
I've heard from friends that went this year that the fear of missing out wasn't as nearly as strong as it has been in years past because nobody was needing to camp out to get into the...
no Hall H.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah. And I was like, at first I was like, cool, you mean it's going to be about comics?
A novel.
What a novel idea. Which is, speaking of that, Phil Seavey went there, and they did the Hellfire Gala.
Oh,
that
right.
they put on this year for all the people to dress up, and he posted something on Instagram that was like, I guess drawing X-Men comics doesn't get you invited to the X-Men Hellfire Gala. Imagine that. And I was like, oh.
That doesn't surprise me at all, actually.
No. But yeah, so some of the news...
Phil's a good-looking dude. They should have invited him anyway. I bet he looks good in a tux.
Yeah. He walks up and they're like, all right, let's just move the little... I assume they have a purple velvet rope out of the way. Like,
the guy dressed as Colossus working the door. Yeah.
Right. Or Toad. So I have been off the Walking Dead like live action train for a long time now. I dropped off like before even Negan got there. And then, I watched a couple episodes once he was there because everyone said Jeffrey Dean Morgan did such a good job. Like, I read the comics. But they're having 2 new shows were debuted. One is called The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, and that's starring Michonne and Rick, who apparently didn't die. And then the other one was the Daryl Dixon series, but it's like Adventures of Redneck in Europe during a zombie apocalypse is what the trailer looked like to me. Because somehow he's in France. I mean, the production value looks great. Like they look really good. It's not something that I'm going to be jumping into. I'm not sure about you guys, but what are your thoughts?
No.
Also no. Chris, what do you...
Probably not. Like, I really liked, The Walking Dead is like my guilty pleasure. Like, I do not think it's a well-written comic. I do not think it's a well-written TV show, but I love watching it. You know what I mean? It is schlock. It is kind of trashy, but I could not get enough of. I have my omnibus over here that I have with this giant tome of comics. I could not get enough of those comics when they were first coming out. I hated myself. It's like listening to Milli Vanilli. You know what I mean? I would sit there reading it and I'm like, why am I reading this? And I'd be like, what's happening to Rick? You know? And I was so mad about like the disparities between the TV show. Like, so the previous writer strike happened during season 2's shooting, right? And that's why they just sit at the and also they were like trying to save money, so that's why they just stayed at that farm the whole time, right? And it's a terrible season of that show. And season 3 is a wonderful season of that show, you know, and it's probably some of the best television ever made. The prison is the best part of that whole show. And the comics, in my personal opinion. And then everything else still feels like a kid that won't stop telling a joke. You know, when you have a little kid and they want the same reaction, or like your kid waits for you to get out, come around the corner and they scare you, and then they want to scare you again and they want you to be just as scared the last time. And it's like, okay, you just did this. You know, there was a Gutters. Do you guys remember Gutters? There was this online comic that would poke fun at comic books and TV shows and stuff like that. And they had one where they just lampooned Walking Dead, where it was like, you can get through the whole Walking Dead reading this one page of comics. And it was Rick and his son meet a new set of people. They seem fine at first, but there's a dark secret. The zombies come in and kill most of all the new people they left. Rick and I can't remember his son's name.
Coral.
Oh, that's right, Coral. How could I forget? Coral. Rick and Coral. Rick and Carl find their way, narrowly escape, usually with one of them missing a piece of their body, and rinse and repeat. That is literally every story, and I can't get enough of it. But if there is a person to pick, I think it's Michonne, right? To say Michonne's one of my favorite characters. They could tell stories with her all the time. Having a strong female lead in a story, always great. Need more of that. Perfect. Do it. We don't need to hear any more about what Rick is doing. Rick is done. Rick was done when he went crazy, when he was hearing phone calls from his wife and stuff like that. And even Robert Kirkman was saying that he wished that he would either have not taken off Rick's hand or made him crazy, or killed him after that storyline, because that's the end of his story. You know what I mean? It was done.
His arc is over. Yeah.
His arc is over. There's no more moving that character to things. And so Rick, fine. You know what I mean? I will probably check these out and sit there hating myself watching it, but
well, it's all right. Now you have an entire other show of the actor that plays Rick holding a gun at like a 45-degree angle when he's pointing it at people. And I'm like, have you ever held a firearm before in your life?
Yeah. He just has no intention of firing it then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every single time I was just like, come on, man. If you pull that trigger, it's going to fly out of your hand. And then where are you going to be?
Yeah.
2 hands, sir. 2 hands. Yeah. Again, I liked the trailer for the Daryl one. And that one is, if I remember correctly, Daryl is nothing in the comics. They just made him for the show.
Yeah. He's just,
he can do whatever the hell he wants. And I thought, okay, cool. Putting him in Europe, you can just do whatever. Like, the scenery, the kind of like desolate beauty, I guess, that you would see in like these old ancient really old European cities with nothing going on in them.
Right. Lots of zombie stories.
Looks really cool.
Lots of zombie stories are America centric, right?
It's like 28 Days Later, and
there's ones that are out there, but I mean, there's a lot of them that are in America, and I think that exploring, I thought that would have been a lot better bent, and how they could continue the Brad Pitt zombie ones, the
World War Z.
World War Z. They had that sequence at the very end of the movie where they were showing like, this is what's happening in Russia, this is what's happening in South Africa, this is India, Israel. Like, that's great. Go around, go do stuff in other places. You know what I mean? It doesn't always have to be a small farmhouse, you know, in mid America somewhere. So anyway,
that's why I said the aliens only invade America.
Right.
They're never going to go anywhere else. If movies have taught me anything, they'd rather go to Iowa than Beijing.
Yes.
But yeah, okay, so that comes out. The Daryl Dixon show comes out October 10th this year, and the other one is set to premiere in 2024. Doesn't have an exact release date yet. This bit of news I was very excited for because I love the Sony Spider-Man games. They dropped the full story trailer for Spider-Man 2. It looks awesome. They redid the it's a lot of the same voice actors, but they redid the character models, like the face character models. Like Peter looks completely different.
Again?
Yeah, Miles too. Miles looks very different, but again, it's the same voice actors, so they kind of look the same a little bit. But they're introducing Harry Osborn, so you know how that's gonna go.
Maybe they'll do something different this time.
Maybe, who knows? Venom is going to be in it, which can't have more than one Spider-Man game go by without Venom. But again, if they do it right and they do it, it's not right. If they do it well, then I'm all in, because I was just playing the Miles Morales one a couple days ago, and it is almost like a meditative, like cathartic experience, just swinging around the city in those games.
I agree. I bought a
love it.
PlayStation 4 to be able to web swing around Manhattan.
Yeah.
And my kids are like, Dad, you're not rescuing anyone. Yeah, that's not why I'm playing this.
They'll be there later.
This is the best web swinging mechanic I've ever played. And I've played them all because I've been waiting for this.
Right.
And then they're like, well, can I play? Yes, when I'm done web swinging.
When I'm done web swinging. Listen, you do the crimes and then give the controller back to me so I can web swing around. I think the only other one that did it well was like the Xbox Spider-Man 2 one. That one was the closest. That was the best one we had until what we just got.
I really liked the original PlayStation one, where the voices were based on the old animated series. But that was like the first one where you could like crawl over all of the interior environments, and it didn't have the processing power to like, so that you could swing down to ground level. But it was like, that one was terrific. I really liked that one a lot. That was my favorite before this one.
And as a surprise to nobody, the very first thing I do in those games is go find Nelson and Murdoch and take a picture next to it, because you have to. You have to. I loved in the Spider-Man Spider-Man first game that they replaced the bull on Wall Street with, oh my gosh, I feel like a terrible fan right now. The Inhuman dog.
Lockjaw.
Jeez.
You know what's funny? My wife was asking me his name like 2 days ago, and I did the same thing where I was like, it took 30 seconds. There's something about that name that it disappears in your brain for a second.
We have an episode where Charles and I were threatening riots if there wasn't a Lockjaw in the Inhuman show. So I feel extra shame right now. But yes, I like that they replaced the Wall Street Bull with Lockjaw. That was a great thing. But yeah, they also released with the trailer, they show there's a new special edition console, PS5, coming out that's all black, and it's got the Spider-Man designs on it. It looks really cool, but I guess they're also selling the console covers separately if you already have one. So
Aren't they typically black? Not the
PS5s. The PS5s have all been white, but I assume they went with the white color over the black color, because if it was black, as I'm looking at mine right now, it would look like Sauron's tower from Lord of the Rings, because this thing is giant and it's got fins on it. You could just put a little eye right in the middle of it if it was black.
Lidless eye, wreathed in flame. Yeah, I get you.
Yep. Yeah. So another trailer that we got was the trailer for season 2 of Invincible. And Invincible comics great. The show was fantastic. J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man is like top tier. So seeing that, and they did a cool thing showing all of the voice actors that were going to be in it, and then the very last page they're like, and also J.K. Simmons, and I was like, well, yeah, because he's great. But so they dropped that the first 8. Okay, so November 3rd will only bring the first half of the 8-episode season. 4 episodes will release weekly starting November 3rd, and then it'll go away until early 2024. But they also dropped a show that I haven't watched yet. It's called Invincible Adam Eve, and it's about Eve and her powers and stuff like that. Looks great. Haven't checked it out yet, but they just released it over the weekend, so that is also on my list. Do you guys watch the first season of Invincible?
I'm a big fan of the comics, big fan of the cartoon. I can't wait for the rest of it to come out. I'm super jazzed.
Ryan, Chris?
I haven't watched. I watched the first episode with my boyfriend. He's like, I don't want to watch this anymore, which is totally fine. And then I haven't gone back and done it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, love the comic. Ryan Otley's a cool cat, so all the success in the world. That's awesome, and it's just and Robert Kirkman has enough money.
Right,
he doesn't need any more. But
yeah, yeah, especially the voice acting in that first season was just so good. Like, there's some times where you can tell, like, especially when they have bigger celebrities, it kind of feels like it gets phoned in sometimes, where, like, you can tell, like, the voice actors that aren't, big actors, they're killing it. And then it's like they're talking to a brick wall sometimes. I didn't get any of that, and especially with the amount of, it was like celebrity actors that did voices in the first season. It surprised me.
J.K. Simmons, certainly a seasoned voice actor, on top of being
J. Jonah Jameson in every single iteration of Spider-Man now.
Right.
He's the constant in the Spider-Verse. Is J.K. Simmons is Jameson. Ryan.
Yes.
You wanted to talk a little bit about some Ninja Turtles.
Yes. So I was scrolling as I do when I'm zoning out, and a really cool thing popped up on my feed. And so the original, the 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon has been purchased by Nickelodeon, and so they are going to be putting it up onto the Nickelodeon-owned channel stuff. So I'm excited about that. That's really cool.
Awesome.
I'm excited to again have my kids watch.
Yeah,
a lot of that, and yeah, that's gonna be fun for them. So the last little bit of news that I have is, it's always my favorite, and it's always like the underlooked thing that happens during San Diego Comic-Con, is the Eisner Awards. I love seeing that, and their award show that they stream parts of it or videos get out, but I love it. So I got a list of the winners this year, and it, for a lot of it, it looks like other than some of the indie titles, DC really had a good year at the Eisners this year. So the best short story was Finding Batman by Kevin Conroy and Jay Bone in DC Pride 2022. Best single issue or one shot is Batman One Bad Day, The Riddler by Tom King. Then the best continuing series is Nightwing by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. If you listen to the last episode, I butcher amazing last names. So if I butcher a last name, just correct me. Best limited series, The Human Target by Tom King and Greg Smallwood. Best new series is Public Domain by Chip Zdarsky, and that's from Image. And then I always like these ones for the early readers and kids, because that kind of gives me something that I can pull for my kids to read. So the best publication for early readers up to age 8 is The Pigeon Will Ride the Roller Coaster by Mo Williams, and that's from Union Square Kids. Best publication ages 9 to 12 is Frizzy by Clarabelle A. Ortega and Rose Bosurama. I think that's how you do that one. Best publication for teens between 13 and 17 is Do a Power Bomb by Daniel Warren Johnson from Image. Best humor publication is Revenge of the Librarian by Tom Gauld from Drawn and Quarterly. Best anthology is the Nib magazine, edited by Matt Bors from Nib.
If you guys aren't following the Nib on social media, you should. It is political cartooning. It's fantastic. Matt Bors is terrific, and all of the artists they hire for the Nib are fantastic. Definitely worth checking out.
It's awesome. Best reality-based work is Flung Out of Space by Grace Ellis and Hannah Templer. Best graphic memoir, Ducks, 2 Years in the Oil Sands by Kate Beaton.
Do you guys remember the Harka Vagrant webcomic?
Yep.
Yeah, that's Kate Beaton.
Yep.
So more of that stuff. It's pretty good. Yeah. Well, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. The best graphic album, The Night Eaters, Book 1, She Eats the Night by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, who's awesome. I love her work.
Yeah, monstrous, right?
Mm-hmm. Best adaptation from another medium, Chivalry by Neil Gaiman, adapted by Colleen Doran.
Have you read this story, Chivalry?
I have not.
So it's quite good. They do a LeVar Burton reads where he reads Chivalry. And I recommend that's the way you consume it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know he said when LeVar Burton was starting that podcast, he asked, if there were any authors out there that would let him read their books, and Neil Gaiman was one of the first ones that you can read any one of my works. I was like, full for you, LeVar. There you go. So next we have best writer is James Tinian IV, who does lots of things: The House of Slaughter, Something's Killing the Children, Wind, The Nice House at the Lake, The Sandman Universe, Nightmare County, The Closet, Department of Truth.
I love that book.
He's awesome. Department of Truth?
Yep.
That's all. I have not checked that one out. You recommend it?
Yeah, like it a lot. It's
okay.
A lot of fun.
Okay, cool. Best writer artist, Kate Beaton, Ducks, 2 Years in the Oil Sands. Then best penciler, inker team is Greg Smallwood from The Human Target from DC. Best painter, multimedia artist for interior art, Sana Takeda, The Night Eaters, She Eats the Night, and Monstrous. Best cover artist for multiple covers, Bruno Redondo for Nightwing. Best coloring, Jordi Belair, which I'm pretty sure every year I see Jordi Belair for at least nominated for colors. And then we've got best lettering, Stan Sakai from Usagi Yojimbo. Sorry,
Usagi Yojimbo.
Yes, I love that that old movie.
Stan's been a letterer for a long time. He used to letter Sergio Aragone's comics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I heard what you said, Ryan.
Best webcomic is Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe from Webtoon. Best digital comic, Barnstormers by Scott Snyder and Tula Latoya from Comixology Original. I follow both of them on social media, so seeing their excitement about getting that was really cool. And then they had some people inducted into the Comics Hall of Fame. We got Jerry Bales, Tony DeZaguna, Justin Green, Bill Griffith, Jay Jackson, Jeffrey Catherine Jones, Jack Katz, Alan Kaminsky Crum, Win Mortimer, Dane Newman, Gasper. This is one that I'm going to kill. Saladino, yes. Kim Thompson, Gary Trudeau, Mort Walker, Tatiana Wood, Brian Ballard, Ann Nesenti, Tim Sale, and Dana Schultz. Which, when I saw Tim Sale and Ann Nesenti, I was like, they weren't already in there?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of surprised about Bill Griffith too. He did. He was an underground cartoonist back in the 70s and really hit his stride in the 80s. Tony De Zagunia also did a lot of the black and white magazines for Marvel back in the day.
Okay. Yeah. No, that was cool. I was like wondering, I was like, is there like a physical comic Hall of Fame that, like, you know, like the football has the football Hall of Fame that you can go and see all the things? Do they have that for comics where you can see
Probably
all their
not,
work?
but they should.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. So
quick note on the nib: if you're going to follow it, do it soon because they're actually shutting it down next month.
Aw.
Yeah.
Boo.
Boo.
All right, so I wanted to do something a little different. We just happen to have some very intelligent comic people to help out with this.
Who?
We thought we were on the show.
Yeah.
But I wanted to start doing this kind of like little like mini deep dives, medium dives into some comics characters, like histories or of the teams of singular heroes. But yeah, so we wanted to start out with Doom Patrol. So take it away. Give us some Doom Patrols.
All right. Doom Patrol, premiering in 1963 in My Greatest Adventure number 80, starred Robot Man, Cliff Steele, an adventurer and race car driver who, after an accident, has his brain removed from his body and placed inside of a robot powerhouse. And he becomes the superhero known as Robot Man. And when test pilot Larry Trainer is bombarded with alien radiation, he becomes the radioactive Negative Man. And when actress Rita Farr suffers an accident while on set, she's exposed to chemicals from deep within the earth, and she becomes Elastigirl with the ability to stretch and shrink herself and other parts of her body. And they are led by the mysterious Niles Calder, who is the chief, a wheelchair-bound master scientist that leads them into their adventures. They would later be joined by Mento, who I believe is one of the most wealthy men in the world, who, obsessed with Rita Farr, creates a Mento-intensifying helmet that gives him psychic powers. And then they are lastly joined by Beast Boy of the Teen Titans fame. But he first joined the Doom Patrol and was kind of kicked around by them. They didn't really like him very much. And so he quits the team briefly and joins the Teen Titans for one issue back in the 60s in the original run of the Teen Titans. But they kick him out too because he's irritating. And so they later bring him back as Changeling for the Wolfman and Perez run on the book. All right. Doom Patrol was known as the strangest heroes of them all, and they often fought very unusual supervillains like the Brotherhood of Evil, which was led by the Brain. It was a disembodied brain that was attended to by his hyper-intelligent gorilla assistant, Mashur Mala. And so they are supported by the shape-shifting Madame Rouge. And so Doom Patrol lasted several issues. They were kind of a mainstay of the 60s, but they weren't selling well. So in issue 121 in 1969, the original team was killed defending a small New England village named Codsville. This scene is reenacted in the Batman Brave and the Bold episode, The Last Patrol. So if you want a good introduction to the Doom Patrol, that episode, which is still streaming on Max, is quite accessible. Now, the creators of Doom Patrol are quite interesting. They're created by Arnold Drake, Bob Haney, and Bruno Premiani. Arnold Drake would go on to create the Guardians of the Galaxy and other characters for Marvel, but he created these weirdo characters, and he really liked telling these strange stories. Bob Haney also worked with him to specifically create Negative Man, and Bob Haney was an old 50s comic guy, and he worked on Brave and the Bold. He helped co-create Wonder Girl, among other characters. He's a interesting creator, but the most interesting of them all, I think, was Bruno Premiani. Bruno Premiani was an Italian comic creator that got kicked out of Italy during World War II for creating anti-fascist comics about Benito Mussolini. And so he fled to Argentina, where he objected to Juan Perón, who was the dictator of Argentina, and was quickly driven from the country for making political cartoons about their fascist leader.
It's awesome.
So there's a lot to admire about Bruno Premiani. So he settled in comics in America starting in the early 50s. And so he mostly worked for DC, and he worked there from the 50s through the 70s, and he co-created Doom Patrol as his most notable work. But his art style was much cleaner, and the faces were more accurate. But he had no problem drawing these very strange stories with giant robots and alien invaders and all sorts of fun creatures that Arnold Drake would throw at Bruno Premiani to draw. And Bruno appears in the last appearance of the Doom Patrol along with the editor at DC Comics to talk about the death of the Doom Patrol in issue 121.
Huh.
So that's kind of a history of the Silver Age Doom Patrol. I could work into the Bronze Age if we wanted to keep going.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In 1977, Robot Man was revived for a short-lived return of Doom Patrol until DC imploded in 1978, and they canceled most of their books. And so Doom Patrol kind of sat fallow for another 10 years until post-crisis, Cooperberg reintroduces the team along with some new members, and one of the early artists on it is a very young Eric Larson, who would go on to be one of the Image founders and have a famous run on Spider-Man. But with issue 19, Grant Morrison took over writing duties, and the stories became a lot more mature. It was one of the prototype Vertigo books for DC, and it readdressed characters, the characters' origins, kind of explained where they came from. No spoilers here for a comic that came out almost 40 years ago, but he also introduced characters like Crazy Jane, and explored issues such as transgender characters and more existential threats for the Doom Patrol to face. Arnold Drake was a huge fan of the Grant Morrison run on Doom Patrol and felt that this was the kind of stories he would have liked to tell in the 60s if he was allowed to. But Grant Morrison's run went for several years, reintroduced characters, reinvented some, and then Rachel Pollack took over, who was one of the first openly transgender comic writers. And they were able to explore issues from a perspective that we certainly didn't see in the late 80s, early 90s in comics, and it's still a rare perspective to find now. Her run on Doom Patrol was recently collected into an omnibus, which is currently available from DC. First time it's been collected in one place. And so Doom Patrol continues on. There's a current series right now, The Unstoppable Doom Patrol, that is certainly a lot of fun, kind of going back to their superhero roots. But they had a fun run on with Gerard Way as the main driving force behind the stories, with art by Nick Darrington. And it's terrific. And that was a lot of fun. It lasted about 24 issues, it's pretty good. They brought back some characters, introduced Space Case, who appeared in this last season of the TV show. Doom Patrol is one of my favorite comics because it always shows me something I've never seen before. I've been reading comics for over 35 years, and some of the stories start to feel rather samey. And I've seen this. Spider-Man's cloned again. Okay, yawn. But the Doom Patrol always shows me something I haven't seen before, and it's always for a breath of fresh air. And so I can heartily recommend Doom Patrol.
Yeah, I watched a little bit about a little history of the Doom Patrol, and one thing that was brought up in the video and the article that I found was a lot of the similarities between Doom Patrol and X-Men coming out within 3 months of each other, and one was the world's strangest heroes, and then the X-Men was the strangest superheroes of all, or something like that, and they were both led by a guy in a wheelchair with a blanket over his legs, which also, why would any time, like if I go back and read some like those older comics, everyone in a wheelchair had a blanket on their legs. Everyone. And I was like, okay, that's just what they did. But yeah, and there's, conspiracies out there that they talked about. Marvel had spies. I was like, I don't think, with them releasing within 3 months of each other, that's
let me pull the curtain back. The only reason we have the Fantastic Four is because Martin Goodman and the publisher of DC used to play golf together, and they said, hey, this team book Justice League seems to be doing pretty well for us. So there was a lot of cross-pollination going on. Man-Thing and Swamp Thing came out very close to each other as well. But if you go back and read the early X-Men comics and you go back and read the Silver Age Doom Patrol comics, their similarities end with what you've mentioned. The stories told in Doom Patrol tend to be more mature than the early X-Men comics. And the
Doom Patrol wasn't going down and having shakes at the local diner and saying
no, no, the Doom Patrol The Doom Patrol were also more heroic than the original X-Men. The original X-Men didn't really fight crime. They just always squabbled with each other and other mutants. Like the first appearance of Blob is a good point. They recruit the Blob, and then when he acts like a jerk, they kick him out. Yeah. And then so he brings the circus back to attack the X-Men, and then Professor X mind wipes everyone. Story ends.
Yeah.
So
I know there's again, you can only have so many names, but the Brotherhood of Evil and then the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Yeah. They have a lot of similarities, certainly.
Yeah.
But again, if you actually read the comics, the similarities are few and far between.
Yeah, a lot of superficial stuff. I did also read a little tidbit that Robot Man is the only member that has been in every single iteration of the Doom Patrol.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
And I loved his portrayal in the Doom Patrol show. Like Brendan Fraser.
Yes.
That show was so much better than I expected to get out of a TV show or a Doom Patrol TV show. Yeah, I feel fortunate to have gotten as much of it as we have, and I'm anxiously awaiting the rest of the last season.
Right. Eventually.
That show has the complete range of human emotions, I feel like.
Yeah, the changes they made to the characters only improved them. I love this version of Larry. He's probably my favorite version of the character.
I love Rita. The way she speaks is
that mid-Atlantic accent.
From the 30s.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's the best. So one last thing I had is I actually I picked up a couple number ones that I wanted to talk about.
Unas?
Uns. I picked up Moon Knight number 1, City of the Dead. From David Pipos, Marcelo Ferreira, Jay Leistein, and Rachel Rosenberg. I was really surprised how much I like this, number one, because Moon Knight has gone through so many, like, and it fits the character, right? If it 100% fits the character, but he goes from, like, just kind of, goofy billionaire guy to, like, there's some iterations where he's basically just the Punisher, right? He's just going around killing guys. This one it gives me a very noir style. And I think it might be because of the amount of narration, like what he's thinking. And it's very like in that noir style where he's describing the city and all this stuff. And that's kind of how it starts out. And then some stuff happens and he's in the world of the dead of the Egyptian gods. So you get two very different views on Moon Knight, but I'm going to pick up at least the rest of this this arc that they're going through because it's really interesting. The artwork is amazing on it, especially like when you see the jump between the real world and the realm of the gods. It's a very, like, Moon Knight looks the same, but it's just the world changes, and I love that. So I would suggest that one. It's very good. I picked up Blade #1 because I loves me some Blade.
Me too.
And this one, where's your full names? Sorry, by Hill, Casagrande, and Jordi Belair. And it's not Joe Hill. I think it's Thomas Hill. I want to say I should probably flip a couple of pages before I say that with any sort of authority. But this one was really good. It started out Brian Hill, Elena Casagrande, and Jordi Belair. It kind of starts out like the first Blade movie. He kind of just busts into this nightclub where there's monsters or vampires, and there's a girl there that he's saving, and he slice and dice his whole thing. But it does, when it starts out, I felt like I was missing something. I'm like, what? Like, I feel like I missed an arc before this, but I kept reading, and it goes a few weeks earlier, and then it kind of fills in what was going on. And then
do you think the story would have benefited from being told in order?
Maybe. I think they did. I think they did that to show, like, to make it start like the movie started.
So there is a writing trope where you start with an action beat.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's what they're doing, I'm sure.
Yeah. And but it's very good. Artwork is very, very fun. Fun for a murdering vampire. And there's a really, like, it's kind of a little gory couple pages where someone, like, they cut their skin and then, like, rip the skin off to reveal what was underneath. It's
they
very
peeled
well
their face like a banana.
Yes, it is. It is very well done. I know they can't see, but
look at that!
It's very, very intense going on there. But it was a good #1. I mean, for #1 for me, does it catch my interest? Does it make me want to check out #2? And both of those did that very well. And surprise, another one that did that very well. I picked up Black Panther #1. This one is, it really opens up the Wakanda for me, because usually when we see Wakanda, it's just kind of like the way they portray it in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Where it's just kind of a city, right? But it's just like, you only see like the downtown of the city. And Wakanda is a whole thing. It's not just like the castle, right? There's a whole, population that lives there. And in this, it's kind of like I wouldn't say cyberpunk, but it's a very futuristic.
It's a very Mobius looking.
Right.
It's a very European sci-fi color palette and the types of buildings where it's
Who's the artist?
Blade Runner usually has a lot
Chris
of like.
Allen.
What was that?
Chris Allen
Okay.
does the pencils and the inks, and it's by Eve Ewing.
Al Ewing, you mean?
Eve L. Ewing.
Eve L. Ewing. Eve is the first name.
Yep.
That's the writer.
Yeah, the writer.
Yep.
Okay. Not. I saw Ewing and I thought it was Al Ewing, but then I was like, it is not Al Ewing.
Color
but yeah.
artist is Jesus Abertov.
Yeah, Abertov does the colors.
No, it's a bunch. It's so like when you're looking at cyberpunk stuff, you think it like the Blade Runner or like Coruscant in the Star Wars movies, right? Where this one looks more like the city from The Fifth Element.
Right, right.
Is what this looks like. Yeah, it looks cool.
It's very like it feels lived in, and like people are kind of on top of each other. It feels like a heavily populated area, which again, every time I've seen Wakanda, it's been, you know, lots of jungles, and then there's like these really super high tech buildings just kind of, you know, plopped down in there. So I really, really liked that. And also in this book, they have moved away from there's a transitional government. He's not the king anymore, and they're setting up a new type of government. So he's kind of out. He's been in exile. He's done stuff with the Avengers. He's kind of bounced around, but now he's kind of back, trying to get back to like his roots. And he's kind of it's like street level Wakanda, if that makes sense. But it was great. Issue 2 is out already. I need to go pick it up, but I wanted to just check out the number 1. But yeah, just seeing that and like seeing all of these people like walking around Wakanda, and there's lawyers and people that run bodegas and, you know, taxis, and it's just a way of portraying Wakanda that I hadn't seen before. And it really grabbed my interest, especially me, because I love the street level hero. Like that's my niche of superheroes, is if it's just a guy walking down the street who's going to stop a mugger rather than fighting someone with the power cosmic. That's kind of more my speed. So yeah, it was really cool. And they did a little new character design where they kind of gave him like a pauldron with a lot of like multicolored like African art on it, and it's really cool addition. And he's kind of got like a little like cloak. I was like, you're hiding. It's a white cloak, and he's in a Black Panther costume.
I don't know what the deal is with trying to give Black Panther a cape.
Right.
Stop. Like his is the best costume design in just the original form. They nailed it on the head, the first one out of the gate. The movie one's super cool, but in the comic books, like that original suit, there is nowhere to go with it that's better. It's always gonna. I like you said, I do like the shield and the spear and like the face paint and stuff. You know what I mean? But it is not as good as the original. It's cool,
right?
But man, that's a tall order to make that costume better.
Yeah. I think they do their best to make it different.
Yeah.
So
yeah, put your mark on it. I understand.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. You know what I mean? But they've done so much also, like the improvement that they did with the technology, like the Iron Man type suit in the movie is really cool. You know what I mean? Just adding more knives and stuff to him.
Right.
Like they did that one in the 90s where he had like the gold necklace on with the claws and the cape.
Christopher Priest. Right?
Yes. Yeah. And it was a cool story, but man, I was like,
one was the high collar Dracula cape thing
that only went halfway down his back. It looks like
right. That's my favorite bad cape.
Yeah,
your favorite.
So, you know what he needs is like a Shazam Captain Marvel, like over the side cape.
Yeah, you know, where he's not even wearing it correctly.
Yeah,
it's too small. You got it from like a thrift store, and you're wearing it incorrectly.
Yeah, they give him a little. I'm trying to find I'll post it in
I got
a
picture here I can put up
of his pauldron and stuff like that. And there's a new character that they introduced at the end that has a really cool design too, that I'm interested in seeing more of. It's very Moon Knight esque.
Yes, very insect-like mask.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
What's the name of the character?
They did not. She just pops up at the end and she says, "Since you weren't supposed to be here, I will not kill you. That is a professional courtesy," and she leaves. And I'm like, but more. So that's why I'm going to pick up issue 2. Figure that all out. But yeah, it was I put it at the bottom of my read pile of these 3 because I really wanted to pay attention to it. And just kind of put all my attention towards what I was reading, and I'm glad I did, because it is very dense, like not only art but also like the inner monologue and the dialogue between all the people on the streets. It was really good though, and I highly suggest it if someone's looking out. All 3 of these.
Very good last page reveals on the Moon Knight and on the Black Panther one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very good. Have you guys been? You have anyone that you want to talk about that you read lately? I know I didn't tell you guys to prep any, but
did you? I have stuff on my shelf, and I'll report it later. I got the because the TV show came out. I haven't watched it, but I did get the Secret Invasion graphic novel. Oh, I did get a copy of Cosmic Ghost Rider. There's like an edition where it has everything, like his appearances in the Thanos annual. And have you read anything about Cosmic Ghost Rider?
I have seen I've seen the like kind of the breakdowns and like the mini reviews on it, but I haven't actually read them.
I'm excited to read this. I will report on it next time. I've read a few of them. I got like his some of the early issues when it came out, and like the Cosmic Ghost Rider like kills the Marvel Universe or fixes the Marvel Universe, something like that.
Yeah,
and it's like a weird. It feels Ghost Rider because he looks awesome, but he's got like a 1950s sci-fi space helmet on, like all glass fishbowl that has the flames in it. And the Ghost Rider is actually a different universe's Frank Castle.
Okay.
And he becomes the Ghost Rider, and like I got to read this again, but he's like trapped for like 1,000 years by himself or something, so he goes nuts. So he's not Frank at all, as like it's a blank slate of a person. But he still has the Ghost Rider, and it's the first story is and I've thought about a story like this before, but he has to go and save like a baby Thanos from being murdered by other time travelers, going back to be like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to the universe. We should kill him as a baby because he's not powerful. And he has to go rescue him. So he's got like this baby Thanos in like a baby carrier on his chest. And so it's a absolutely ridiculous character going on strange, funny adventures. And so yeah, I'll when I read that up, I'll tell you about it.
They just don't really know what to do with Frank Castles now. Like in the Daredevil stuff, he was the vessel for the Beast, for the Hand. They're like, yeah, but you're not really Frank Castle anymore. You're kind of the Beast. And then now they're like, yeah, you're Frank Castle, but you're also Ghost Rider from a different universe.
Yes,
it's just like they don't know what to do with him.
Yeah. And he's getting replaced now, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Guy. Yeah. And that's another thing we were talking about, the fake outrage from the right about Barbie earlier. Same deal with the Punisher like switch out. They're like, oh, they're mad because he was being like, cops have his logo on his on their car and stuff like that. Which, if you ever come by the Validity Studios, shameless self plug here, come by our booth where we have the Punisher logo with a rainbow flag on it, because fascists shouldn't own that. Comics are for everybody,
right?
But the new suit looks really cool, like on the new guy. Like I like new versions of the Punisher suit, but having like the reverse skull on his chest, it looks pretty great. So
I thought it was cool what they did with when he went full the Beast for the Hand. They kind of changed it a little bit to look more like devil-y.
Yeah, like an Oni type.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I'm waiting for the next issue to come out to talk about the Daredevil run, but it's been phenomenal.
blanket, and I know maybe this is the end of our friendship, Luke, but I have like a blanket hate for when a superhero is turned into a ninja when they're not one. So like the Batman movies when it was
Oh yeah,
Christopher
Bat
Nolan ones where it's
Ninja.
like,
Yep.
he's a ninja. Oh, give me a break. You know, he could just be a guy. He's very
Right.
good at fighting. You know what I mean? He's rich. He could do anything. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
his superpower, you know?
Yeah.
Daredevil pulled it off, right?
Mhm.
Like he wasn't a ninja at first. And then they, that Frank Miller, and that's what inspired everyone to copy it, right? But I feel like that magic in the bottle happened once. And so now Marvel goes around, they're like, he's a ninja.
Wolverine's a ninja now.
Yeah. He's G.I. Joe did this when I was a kid, right?
Ninja
You remember
Force,
this?
right?
Yeah.
Where it was like, everyone's a ninja. What's his name? Firefly. He's part of the ninjas because he has the mask on, and Beachhead's a ninja.
Wasn't
Falcon's
Kitty
a
Pryde
ninja.
a ninja at one point, Ryan?
Yes, she got trained by a demon ninja. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They
good
rarely
old
pull that off to great effect. They did it wonderfully with Daredevil, and it has been a poor imitation with every other character ever since.
I mean, I could agree with that. There was a good because Charles Soule introduced Blind Spot, another new Daredevil lore character. He kind of was his Robin for a little bit, and then because he was close to Matt Murdock, his life went to shit immediately. But they actually brought him back in the latest issue where he's kind of like defending. He's in Japan and he's defending the portal to the Beast of the Hand, and again he's like this happy-go-lucky immigrant kid in the Charles Soule run, and this guy has been. I want to say he had his eyes removed by I can't remember what villain it was, but like now he's going through some shit, and you could tell like his hair's all long. He's got like has his depression beard, but it's really good that they that they have him in there because he's a really interesting character. He's kind of like Daredevil, but with technology. Like he has a suit that can make him invisible, type thing. But yeah, so it was really cool to see him back, and him and Matt share a moment because he's obviously guarding this mystical portal, so he's been seeing shit. So actually seeing his friend come and talk to him, they have like a little emotional moment, and he basically was like, listen, I got it, kid. You can go. He's like, the responsibility is not yours anymore. Go live your life. And it's this really emotional couple of pages, and I was like, this is some good. Zdarsky, man, you're good at this.
He knows how to write a
comic
comic.
Writing thing.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he's pretty good at it. That's not.
First, I was like, you're good at drawing this comic thing, and then all of a sudden he started writing it, and I was like, wow, you might be better at writing it than you were at drawing it.
I really like his run on Howard the Duck.
Yeah, wasn't that his first one that he actually got like of the big companies that he got to write? Because I know it was always him and Fraction working together, and he did the art. I thought Howard the Duck might have been the first big one. He might have some creator.
I don't know. I don't want to agree.
Yeah,
and
right.
Everybody mark your calendar. Andrew didn't know the answer off the top of his head. This doesn't happen often. Mark when this happened here. So I'm always in awe.
I'm 9/12 on the
9/12. Is this like one of those branching moments in like the timeline where someone's going to come back and try and stop us?
Chris likes to make a note when I don't know something. So
it's just it doesn't happen often. You talk about the times that you don't expect. You know what I mean? Like when you talk about if you see a general go to battle and win every war, it's the battles that he doesn't win are the ones you talk about, right? It's just always
a lot of people don't talk about how many of the battles Napoleon won.
Yeah.
Just when he got routed.
Yes. Yep. 100%. Because it's the odd one out, right? Like that's the deal. He's been that Chip Zdarsky, he's been writing amazing comics for forever. That Spider-Man.
He's also a wonderful human.
Seems like it, which is also really nice, because you meet a lot of people that are not so much.
Yeah, I love telling the story of when Charles and I went and saw him at San Diego. And I cannot remember the artist that he was sitting next to, but he was complaining that the security wouldn't let him in because he didn't have a badge. And he's like, he said, I'm the fucker these guys are here to see. And Chip looks over at him and goes, "You're Mr. Funko?" and then he did a couple of sketches for me and Charles. He drew me a constipated Hulk, and then he drew sexy Batman for Charles, which has become his thing now, inappropriate superheroes. Then that all started with Chip. And then he was also like on his little price thing. It was like, sketch $5. He's like, hug free. And then hug and a kiss on the cheek, I'll pay you, is what he had on there. Like he's funny dude. So it was one of those, when you run into the creators and they're just awesome. I had the opposite experience with Bruce Timm. He was very like, all right, move along, move along, get out of here. And I was like, I get it, but like, see Kelly Sue and Zdarsky, they were just gems. Gail Simone, Scott Snyder, they were all just amazing.
If any of you have an opportunity out there listening to us in Radioland, go see Steve Lieber if you have a chance. A prince among men you will never meet. Finer than Steve Lieber.
Yep,
that's
he's
awesome.
great. Charles Soule's also very nice, and Ryan Brown is really nice from God Hates Astronauts, and one of my favorite comics, Hero Killers.
Didn't he do 8 Billion Genies, which is
8 Billion
currently
Genies.
a huge hit? Yeah.
Yep. So looking at Chip Zdarsky's Wikipedia page here, so that nobody feels like this didn't get resolved here, he did Original Sins. He did a story in Original Sins number 5, which came out in October of 2014 for Marvel. But the first one, it looks like the first one that he was Howard the Duck.
Yes, I remembered a thing.
Yeah, that was 2013.
I'm proud of myself.
He did writing before that, but all of his comic book stuff came in the early 2010s. And then he was immediately won Eisner and Harvey Awards and everything. I mean, he started with Genius and went from there. So good for him.
He had a rather lengthy career as a graphic designer and commercial artist before he got into comics. And Chip Zdarsky's a pseudonym that he uses.
Yeah, that's awesome. But
because he's Steve Murray.
Bill Jones.
No, he's actually Steve Murray. Is
he Steve Murray?
Name. Yep, and his other pseudonym is Todd Diamond.
Chris, we need to come up with better.
I know, right? Like you could just make up your own name, and it sounds amazing like that. That's rad.
Todd Diamond.
Yeah,
that's great.
I didn't know this was an option.
But you know what? Speaking of comics creators that are great to talk to, and you should go see them at every single convention that they're at. It's Chris Hoffman and Andrew Malin.
Oh,
disagree. But anyway,
disagree. No, I will be happy to see anyone that is at least ostensibly happy to see me.
Yeah. But you have to coax me out from under the table with like lunch meats and stuff,
Yeah, here's your Lunchables, buddy.
Yeah.
Just a trail of lunch meat and trail mix.
Sitting there growling at you while I'm trying to sign the comics, No. I feel like we're pretty fun. We try to make it a point when we're at a con, we try to make the con the way we want to attend the con. And I think maybe we've told you this story before, but Steve Lieber actually tells a story about when he went to a Comic-Con when he was a kid. And his parents just dropped him off because that's what you did in the day. It was like 8 years old, go to the con by yourself.
Yeah, it was the 70s. They didn't care if you lived back.
They didn't care. And I think it was he met Marie Severin.
Yes.
At the con, and she asked him like, "Hey, who's your favorite character?" And stuff. And he's like, "Oh, it's the Hulk." And she drew him a picture and was like, "Hey," and talked to him for forever and stuff. And he says, that sealed it. You know what I mean? That was like my love for comics was forever at that point. And so not that I ever feel like, but you never know who is going to come up to the table and like have a lifelong love for the art or for this. And I feel like you just need to be a nice person. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like I said, like
give the audience the the experience we would want to get from other comic creators.
You never want to be the guy that, ruined, so like, again,
ruined comics for somebody, right?
Right. I understand Bruce Timm. He had a giant line. He was trying to get everyone through, and he wasn't mean. He was just like, oh yeah, okay, all right.
Yep. I will give everyone one. You know what I mean? You give everybody one pass, right?
Mhm.
Where you're like,
Mhm.
maybe you didn't get lunch, maybe you just got some bad news.
You didn't.
Everybody has a
sleep the
bad
night
day.
before, right?
Yeah, whatever. And cons, you know what I mean? And especially on cons, like on the other side of the table, it's the same con over and over again. You know what I mean? Like you end up it's the same line of people. It's the same people you're sitting next to. You know what I mean? And you also got to give it to some of our fans. Some fans are not the nicest people either.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
So
Oh yeah.
if you keep getting that person over and over again, it could be a bad experience. But if you meet someone twice and they're kind of a jerk, it's maybe they're just not very nice.
Kind of a jerk, right?
Yeah,
that's happened to me a couple times before. Creators will remain nameless here, of course, but well, it's the Chris and my experience. I mean, our attitude towards it doesn't come from nowhere, right? We. I am very keen to tell people not to meet their heroes.
Yeah. But
thank you for the compliment, though.
Yeah. No. So roll with that compliment into plugging your stuff. So we'll wrap this episode up.
Rad. So you'll want to check out Velleity Studios. Keep up to date. We are almost completely done with Ruthless. It is colored. It is because it came out lettered. Like the preview issues have been in black and white, and it is in color, live and in color. It is some of them are being relettered because we're going to make this the perfect for us comic. Again, we're making the comic we would like to read. And so if you hit us up on the socials, it's VELLEITY Studios, like Deity Studios. If you go and check that out, we're on Facebook,
for the boomers,
Threads, and TikTok, and now X apparently.
Oh, we're on X? That's news to me.
Yeah. Well, today
not the drugs, everyone.
Yeah.
They're not on ecstasy.
Yeah. No, as of
I
this
thought you were
recording,
holding.
Yeah. As of this recording, it is 7:24, and Twitter has officially rebranded itself to X, where you don't tweet anymore, you X at people. And so I feel like
no, sir, I don't like it.
This is going to I feel like you're not going to be hearing about very many people being on the social media website formerly known as Twitter for very much longer.
Oh, is it just going to end up being I guess it is just an icon, I guess.
It is just an icon. It's as bad as you think.
Oh, man.
We're living through the I mean, I was never a huge fan of Twitter in the first place, but somehow that is the accomplishment of Elon Musk, is to make it worse.
Oh man. So that's all I had for the episode today. Guys, thanks for coming on the episode. It's always a joy.
Thanks for having us.
Always thanks for having us. Yeah.
And you can find us over on Instagram and X now at the Nerd Dome. And I believe
X the Nerd Dome.
And then I should probably just click that little button and make our Instagram a Threads, but I have not done that yet, but one of these days. And then again on Facebook with Nerd Dome Podcast. If you have any comments or questions or corrections of my terrible pronunciation of names, go ahead and put that in there, and we will discuss it. But yeah, so that's all I have. Ryan?
Don't forget to subscribe.
You may now exit the dome.
Fuck responsibility.
I can see the whole time.
Hail Hydra.
You guys have a fun sign off for this episode?
Shout out to superfans Tyler and Natalie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, it's perfect. Bye, guys.
Bye.